In the name of God. The Contradiction of Plentitude.
Luxury scarcity consultant Ada curated over-the-top experiences for billionaires, private meteor showers, Everest dinners, but her latest client demanded the impossible: originality. She staged an extemporaneous alien abduction, improvising as new obstacles arose. Hiring actors and hacking satellites, she simulated a UFO sighting so convincingly that even skeptics faltered. The client, a reclusive tech mogul, initially dismissed the spectacle as a hoax. However, Ada began to explicate the event with intricate detail, referencing obscure symbols from his childhood. Each revelation felt deeply personal, as though the universe itself were speaking to him. By the time the final act played out, his disbelief had begun to wane. What had started as a ruse became an obsession for the billionaire, who now funneled his fortune into uncovering the truth. Ada carefully fed his fixation, planting ancient texts and false leads, as though a secret history had been uncovered. To keep control of the narrative, she needed to extirpate any external influences that might expose the deception. She erased digital footprints, bribed journalists, and even staged a fake government cover-up to solidify the illusion. The client's paranoia grew. He believed the world had been conspiring to keep him from a grand cosmic revelation. Meanwhile, Ada diverted his millions into climate relief, an irony that did not escape her. The wealth that had once exploited the planet now funded its survival. The client began amassing artifacts and testimonies, convinced they were extant remnants of an extraterrestrial civilization. He commissioned expeditions, combing through remote landscapes for proof that Ada had fabricated. She watched as his mind bent under the weight of discovery, a man chasing shadows he could never grasp. Yet, in his fervor, something unexpected occurred. His detachment from human affairs lessened. He began investing in scientific endeavors, unknowingly funding real progress while chasing phantoms. Ada felt a flicker of guilt, but the greater good justified the means. The longer he searched, the more the world benefited from his misplaced wealth. Despite his growing conviction, external experts dismissed his findings, citing extrinsic inconsistencies in the data. Ada ensured that every discovery was just plausible enough to evade immediate debunking but flimsy enough to keep him searching. She played a dangerous game, balancing revelation with mystery, always staying ahead of the skeptics. The client's frustration only deepened his resolve, pushing him further into the labyrinth Ada had built. His need for answers became a consuming force, driving him into deeper isolation. Yet, in his delusion, he had become a patron of humanitarian causes, unwittingly changing lives. Ada saw the contradiction in his actions but did nothing to stop it. To manage the evolving deception, Ada released expository documents through anonymous sources, expanding the mythos she had created. She fabricated testimonies from supposed abductees, experts, and defected government officials. The client devoured every piece of information, never questioning how it all conveniently aligned with his beliefs. Meanwhile, real scientists lamented the surge of misinformation, unaware that it was all a carefully orchestrated performance. The deception had become an ecosystem of its own, growing beyond Ada's initial vision. If she were to abandon it now, the illusion might collapse entirely. Yet, the more elaborate the lie became, the harder it was to maintain. He started using extrapolation to connect seemingly unrelated events, spinning an ever-expanding web of cosmic conspiracy. What Ada had engineered as an elaborate trick had become an obsession reshaping the man's reality. His descent into the unknown was accelerating, and Ada wondered if he would ever return to reason. At times, she questioned whether she had gone too far, but the impact of his funding could not be denied. Hospitals were built, disaster zones were aided, and environmental policies were influenced, all under the illusion of alien intervention. The hoax had become more than just a con, it was, in its twisted way, a force for good. She wrestled with the ethics of it but did not stop. One night, Ada decided it was time to expiate her deception, crafting the final revelation. She sent the client a package containing a single letter, a confession. In it, she laid out the entire scheme, from its inception to its most elaborate fabrications. Every clue, every discovery, every grand illusion carefully engineered to ensnare his mind. She expected anger, perhaps even vengeance, but what followed was silence. The client withdrew from public life, disappearing into solitude. His search had ended, leaving behind only the legacy of his unwitting philanthropy. Months passed, and Ada readied herself for the inevitable fallout, but no retribution came. Instead, the world carried on, fueled by the structures his obsession had built. The irony was not lost on her, even a fabricated vision could inspire real change. Some remnants of the myth persisted, carried by fringe theorists and true believers, but she no longer had control over them. She wondered if the story had taken on a life of its own, independent of her manipulation. Perhaps some myths were meant to endure, even those born from deception. Yet, she felt an unfamiliar emptiness in the absence of her role as its architect. Finally, Ada quit her profession and opened a small theater for the homeless, where stories were free. She no longer had use for facetious illusions, preferring tales that held no ulterior motives. In a world drowning in deception, she sought solace in honesty, however mundane. The homeless, her new audience, craved stories not for wealth or escapism, but for warmth and recognition. Here, the narratives weren't tailored to manipulate but to heal. Her life of spectacle had ended, replaced by something simpler yet more meaningful. She had traded opulence for authenticity, and for the first time in years, she felt whole. And yet, whispers of her grand deception lingered, floating through forums and late-night radio broadcasts. Some still believed, convinced that she had only revealed a fraction of the truth. The myth was extraneous to her now, yet it refused to die. It had outgrown its creator, evolving into something neither wholly false nor entirely real. Ada watched from the sidelines as others took up the mantle of discovery, chasing shadows she had long since abandoned. Perhaps the lie had become something else, a shared story, neither deception nor truth, but something in between. And in that contradiction, it continued to thrive.
Like and subscribe if you would like.